All right, well, let's get started, shall we, with the 2002 Ford Thunderbird in all of its glory, right? I must say, I kind of misjudged this car for the entirety of my life, really. I thought this was just some front-wheel drive V6 nonsense vehicle. It turns out to be a V8 flagship luxury coupe for the Americas, right, with the V8 in it. Okay, so I admit I was a little wrong about this car, but not completely wrong. But here's the thing, though. I understand with most car reviews, okay, the sorts of people, there are really two people that watch car reviews. One, people who watch these things for entertainment, and two, people who actually own these cars and they just want to hear glorious things being said about their vehicle and just how cool they are for owning it, and they want to share these videos on their little forum pages with their buddies. So the thing is, if I go ahead and I roast this car like some people might want me to, they're going to blow me up on their little forums. They're going to call me out. The backlash is going to be insane, let's just say that much. So let's try to tone it down a notch, and let's try and focus on some of the positives. And this car is located at Cary Imports. If you want to buy it, it's $12,800. It's got about 109,000 miles on it, but again, more on that towards the end here. Okay, let's first of all talk about the looks of this vehicle. The looks of this car, it's supposed to mimic the first generation Thunderbird from the 50s. And you know what? With all the little crash regulations and all that nonsense, you know, they really tried their best to give it that 50s look, but in the 21st century era, right? So I give them some props where props are due, because I see why some people like this car. People don't have to like a car because it's the best in the world or anything like that. Like, a lot of people like that Maserati Gran Turismo thing, right? Not because it's necessarily a good car or like the best car that you can get for the money, right? People like it because it has like that swagger and that aura to it. Well, there's this innocence to this car that I can see why certain people might find this likable, I guess. I don't hate this car. I never hated this car, to be specific. I admit it has its little charms, the little circular front headlights and the rear taillights. I mean, it's about 186 inches long, so it certainly doesn't look like any other car on the street, so I'll give it that. This particular car has 17-inch wheels on it, wrapped in 235 wide Michelin tires, brand new Michelin tires, that is. And let's kind of check out that 3.9 liter V8, shall we? About 7 seconds to 60, and you know what? It feels peppier than you would expect. So, 3,800 pounds, that's how much this vehicle weighs. This is the first model year for this generation, the 11th gen, so you got 252 horsepower, about 267 pounds-feet of torque. The later model years got 280 horsepower, and it's got its little short, long arm, trying to mimic a double wishbone type suspension setup in all four corners. And this was based upon the Lincoln LS. I had no idea about this. The Lincoln LS platform / the Jaguar S-Type platform. So that's what this vehicle is trying to, well, that's what this car is based off of. Yeah, you know what? Speed with this car is definitely not an issue. It's better than I thought. And that's the thing, people say that the horsepower numbers on this is abysmal. And it is. 280 horsepower sounds like nothing, but the reality is, what I've noticed with these older cars and with their more lower horsepower numbers is they always end up performing better than what the numbers suggest. I think like the Mustang of its time, right? Like the 02 Mustangs, 04 Mustangs, they only made like 260, 270 horsepower. I forget exactly what it is, but cars weren't really that powerful. And there were some V6s that made around this much horsepower. This is back in the era where like 300 plus horsepower was seen as, something. Now it's like normal, mid-size family cars kind of have that much power. But this is a V8, And in this world of electrification, all that stuff, I wanted to check this car. I wanted to see what Ford kind of did here. Granted, this is a half-assed approach to luxury, I admit that, but this was supposed to be like a Lexus SC / Mercedes SL competitor at like half the price, essentially, right? That's what this is trying to be. This thing originally started at about $36,000, right? Which is kind of a lot of money. Like I said, this is based upon the Lincoln LS and the Jaguar S-Type chassis, so it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle. This is supposed to be like that luxury coupe vehicle, right? So not the Mustang approach. This is supposed to be a refined power. And is it refined? Kind of. It's not super noisy in here, you know, even at speeds. The way road noise isn't ridiculous. It's not as good as it should be, but it's not bad. I would compare this to like the Lexus SC. And we got the little hard top convertible action going on here, so that kind of helps with quieting this vehicle down further. The most annoying thing with this car is probably the dashboard. It's kind of rattling like crazy because it's been sitting out in the sun for so long, and the little plastic clips inside the dashboard kind of get worn out. It makes the dashboard feel kind of rattly when you go over these bumps. So that's the most annoying thing. You can probably hear it through the video as well. The brakes, it's definitely a brake pedal you have to get into a little bit to get the maximum braking performance. Steering surprisingly requires some effort to it, but it's so vague. It's like a very strange steering feel, but whatever, though, it kind of matches the characteristic of this weird little car. I'll check out some of the more handling dynamics here soon, and some more of this ride quality. The ride quality over some of the smaller bumps can make it feel a little jittery, as I'm about to test. But absorbs the larger bumps pretty well. You just kind of hear it a little bit, but it's not a bad riding car. So what they did was, as opposed to the Lincoln LS and the Jaguar S-Type, they try to soften it down a little bit compared to those vehicles. And I haven't driven those cars, but yeah, I can see what they're trying to do here. Agility is definitely not this vehicle's forte. But ride quality is forgivable. It's not too bad at all. It's a decent little cruiser. And again, you know, the SC Lexus is not a cheap car. The SL Mercedes, not a cheap car either, $60,000, $70,000. And this was trying to be half of that while giving you that American charm and the freedom and being a convertible vehicle. It's a cool little vehicle, I admit. Definitely likes to roll with that chassis, that's for sure. And mind you, this is with 109,000 miles, of course. Got yourself a 5-speed automatic, which is pretty damn slow to react, I'm not gonna lie. And some people, some of the Thunderbird specialists will probably tell me, you know, if you turn off the air conditioning, it'll react quicker or something. Yeah, right, okay. Went over some railroad bumps, absorbed that pretty well. Like I mentioned, you know, the larger bumps, not really an issue. As you can see, you're hearing it, but it's not really translating much into the cabin. Seats are supremely comfortable, so that also helps keeping this vehicle and not being overly fatiguing. Let's go ahead, test out this little handling. Yeah, this is definitely not built for handling. Definitely like a straight line cruiser. That's what this car is built for. So I think you get the point with this vehicle. I think you kind of understand its mission and its purpose. It's a better experience than I thought it was. This engine really makes up for it. I really like the power output of this thing, and of course the later model years made a little bit more power, but it seems like you're gonna have to pay a lot more money to get those later model years with the lower mileage. We're talking about like $20,000-$25,000. It's almost like a Lexus LS in that sense. These things seem to be going up a little bit in price, so well, there you go. If you like this car, you probably already own it and you're just watching this video just to see how cool your car looks. And that's fine, you know, that's cool. I'm glad you have this car. There's really nothing else like it that you can replace this with. Only this car looks like this, and yeah, enjoy it for those reasons. So with that, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the interior segment. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior now, since we are stopped. And look at it. It's one of those early 2000s interiors. There's nothing crazy going on, but the thing I liked about early 2000s interiors was they were always kept simple. You know, it's always going to be a classic. There's really nothing to date it or age it or anything like that. The little silver aluminum-ish looking panels kind of give it this space-aged look, if you will, right? And overall, it's got these little lines going through the door panels, and that kind of matches up with the seats, and it gives it a decent little look in here. I like the leather seats. They've aged pretty well, aside from some wrinkling going on near the bottom bolster areas. This is not a bad looking space to be in. Got some gloss black on the top of the steering wheel here, and there's a little wear on that as well, but for the most part, this is a neat looking interior space. You have auto one touch windows just for the driver's side window here, and it only goes down one touch, but it won't go back up. And this is not double pane glass or anything like that, although that would have been nice to see here. You know, a little extra effort could have definitely gone into this vehicle, but I suppose compared to its competition, that's all that they were charging, like half of the budget basically, or half of what the cost of its rivals were. So that's pretty much what you're gonna get here. A lot more plastics being used, especially in the center here, you know, creaky, crunchy little plastics and a crunchy dashboard. I mean, this is supposed to be expected. All the little Cadillacs and everything I've driven of this era, mileage, year, they all kind of feel like this, and you know, the same type of plastic materials are going to be used throughout. And this is essentially a Lincoln LS interior that they just took and just shoved in here, I suppose. And well, that's just the thing. They knew they weren't going to sell many of these cars. In fact, this car didn't sell very well at all. It's basically a failure. So I guess it's a good thing that they didn't invest too much money from a business standpoint into making this like the most perfect luxury tourer, because they would have never gotten their money back for it. So it kind of makes sense. And I think the few people that are going to own this car, they don't really care about the interior. Any kind of faults or, you know, issues that this car has, people are just going to eat it up, and they don't care, and they're just going to live with it, I suppose. So there you go, there's that. You do have automatic headlights, which is a nice feature. It's got a little gauge here, and seeing out of this vehicle is pretty difficult. This, I guess you can call it a B-pillar, is very large, and it's really hard to see out of. But other than that, the mirrors do a very good job in this vehicle. And you got a little circle window in the back there, but you can't really see through it. So it's just mainly a design cue, I guess. I think it's supposed to harken back again to the first gen Thunderbird. So nice little design cue right there. The audio system actually sounds pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. I turned up the radio a little bit, and it sounded very loud, very clear in here. I'm not sure what audio system they use, but this audio sounds better than the new Ford's audio system. Can you believe that? The little Bang & Olufsen nonsense that they put in some of the Explorers today and the F-150s, this actually sounds better, so that's cool. All the things in here work perfectly. All the electronics, all of the climate control is perfect in this car, easy to use, no problem, functions perfectly. No stupid check engine lights or anything like that. Again, this is a Jaguar engine, so you know, something to keep in mind. Leaking from the gaskets, just some of the few issues that I found with some basic research. But yeah, maybe buying this with a warranty from a reputable dealership is the way to go. That's pretty much what I recommend. I believe Cary Imports will still sell you a warranty on this car, so I would definitely take advantage of that. But anyway, got your little 5-speed shifter right here as well. Your little trunk release button is actually this little keyhole thing right here on the driver's side door panel. Again, I'm not going to mess with their convertible top. I believe it's that hard top convertible here. I see 2 little latches here. I don't want to screw with it because it's their vehicle. I don't want to break anything. So just so you know, there's a convertible release button right here. Well, armrest is pretty abysmal. There's really not much space in here, but I did find this. If you died right now, do you know for sure that you would go to heaven? Do you know? I'll probably just burn in hell. The glove box it exists. It's not too bad. There's obviously no rear seats in here. It's just a little storage panel where I'm just keeping my tripod for right now. But you do have a little Thunderbird logo right here in the back. Kind of looks like a Chrysler logo from afar, but it's not. Let's go ahead and let's talk about that trunk. So the trunk is really not that tall and there's not too much space back there, but you do have a spare tire back there, which is nice. And that's pretty much a look at the Thunderbird. So when new, I mean, who was this car for? It was for the person that apparently didn't know that the Corvette existed. And, you know, they're one of those people, like, they'll hear stories from their mom like, oh, you know, you were conceived in the back seat of a Taurus, and now they grow up and they think they need to live up to that expectations, I guess, and then they have to go out and they have to go get a Ford or something. But no, okay, jokes aside, this car is genuinely different. I can see why people like it. Like I mentioned in the beginning, this has a unique styling, which is unlike any other car, especially from the 2000s era. I saw the 80s and the 90s Thunderbirds. They look like shit. I mean, that was kind of a bad time for cars in general. They were kind of moving into this society of all these crash regulations, I suppose, and cars just didn't look very good. And then this thing came out, and you know what? They tried to harken back to those 50s era cars. So again, take advantage of it if you like. Definitely take advantage of this one. I mean, there's a few little faults with this that I noticed. Like the passenger side door, it's a little sticky, like it gets stuck, so it's a little difficult to open, and I can't seem to open it from the outside for whatever reason. And like I mentioned, this dash tends to creak and rattle when you go over bumps, but hey, the price reflects it's $12,800. I've seen them go for like well over $25,000. So if you want a little piece of Ford American history, well, here you have it. I think it's a cool card. I mean, if you like it, go ahead and buy it. The thing that matters is if you're happy, that's all that matters, man. You don't have to worry about what I have to say or what anybody else has to say. Your happiness is the most important factor when purchasing anything. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave all of Cary Imports information. They're located in Cary, North Carolina. If you're interested in buying this vehicle, their information will be down in the description box. So I hope to see you guys on the next video. Take care and goodbye.